everyone, welcome or welcome back on my channel. Today we talk about delicate things, dependency or addictions. This topic was required by my friend Giovanna, who literally told me, why don't you make a video that talks about drug addiction and all the suffering, accusation, injustices, and discrimination that those poor and fragile people suffer every day. She's very sensitive to this subject, having also volunteered in specialized Swiss clinic. I, for intellectual honesty and impartial evaluation, will look at both sides of the coin, as I usually do with all the things. And as I told her, I will talk about addiction in general, not just drugs addiction, observing the perspective of both parties, dependent and non-dependent people, and without entering the technician because it compels me a leader and there's no what interests us. A small overview in general to then hook to comparison. There are various addictions in which a person could fall and are divided into two macro areas. The substance addiction, such as heroin, cocaine, alcohol, hallucinogens, cannabis, caffeine, nicotine, and energy drink. And behavioral addiction, such as game, internet, social networks, mobile phone, smartphone, the shopping, compulsive shopping, the sexual, porn, TV series, affective, work, physical exercise. As you can understand, the situation is much more delicate, complicated, and problematic than what you imagine. Many think they are mentally balanced, strong, and have no problem because they do not use drug or alcohol. Because for most people, those are the addiction. Now they know that this is not the case. And they must also know that behavioral addiction, if not for the body, are just as harmful as for the brain. Both categories are considered pathological addiction. But how these disorders present themselves? The subject feels the compulsive need to take on a certain substance or behavior. It cannot do without it. Since that seems to have a certain positive and gratifying effect on a psychic level. The individual, therefore, tends to act in view of the substance or behavior. The stage leading to the pathological addiction are different. Let's see them. In the beginning, certain substance or behavior are sought because they are able to give pleasure and relief. Furthermore, in this phase, the problem denial is almost always present. The substance behavior totally dominates the subject's thoughts and behavior. It is no longer able to think of anything else, and therefore it is unable to control itself. It needs to take the substance or to carry out the specific behavior compulsively. The presence of craving, which indicates the growing desire or state of tension that precedes the assumption of the substance or the implementation of the behavior. The unstable mood present especially before taking the substance or committing the action, but subsequently totally generalized. There is a presence of greater tolerance, which indicates the need to increase quantity of the substance or the time developed to the behavior to obtain a pleasant effect. A growing feeling of loss of control over the intake of the substance or the execution of the behavior. The presence of profound mental and psychical discomfort when the intake of substance or the period dedicated to behavior is interrupted or reduced. The continued use of the substance or the execution of the behavior despite the malfunction on a personal and interpersonal level, such as working, emotional, and friend sphere. An increasing tendency to reconnect with the substance or behavior after a period of interruption, known as a relapse phenomenon. High frequency of taking multiple substances or carrying out multiple behaviors, as well as switching from one addiction to another. I do not want to go further into the explanation, but it was necessary doing it to remind the consciously dependent to keep their guard up, and to those who think they are okay, that they cannot be sure if they are objectively review themselves in this list of some of that, or if some family member, friends, or acquaintance has noticed something similar into them. It is also important to emphasize that we are all at risk of any kind of addiction, because at the base of everything there is a sense of lack of something, an unprocessed suffering, and in general addictions compensate. So at least we think at the beginning, until they themselves become the main problem that has ruined and destroys many lives in the world. The World Health Organization is very attentive to addictions because they are on the rise and they are devious and dangerous. Addictions create split in society with different emotional manifestations. Let's see some of them. On the part of the dependent people, they always feel accused, never accepted. Whatever they say or do is wrong. They are never taken into consideration. Regardless of what they can do, the taint remains for life. Depression, anxiety, defensive, aggression, blame, justification, sometimes violence and criminal acts. From non-dependent people, disgust, anger, frustration because they cannot convince the addicted to get help, fear for themselves and for dependent people, distrust because accustomed to lying, total closure and intolerance, sense of guilt, resignation. I'm part of both of them. A great discomfort, distrust in life and people, desire to run away, sometimes to die, total closure towards others, a shame. What can we do? Everyone, all of us, we can begin to communicate our problems and our feelings, our emotions. Let us not be ashamed to express what we feel. Let's not worry about reaction. It's better to receive a negative reaction to be processed than to keep everything inside until it explodes. We are not superheroes. We are human. Let's not be ashamed, but being proud of ourselves if we decide to consult a specialist. Everyone can make wrong choices. Few manage to give them up for good. What that you are not alone. You have to know that you are not alone and there are supports of all kinds. For those who are addicted, change your attitude. No more victimization, blame, justification, arrogance, aggression. Regardless of motivation, it will always go against you in the end, because you will be isolated and discriminated against even more. If there was a chance to reintegrate, your negative attitude will preclude any possibility. For the non-dependents, change your attitude. Stop pointing the finger, accuse, offend, condemn, treat with disdain and disgust, regardless of what may have happened or how bad the situation seems to you. It could also happen to you or some of your family member. No one is perfect, and no one should judge anyone. Some quotes before closing. In conclusion, if we all begin to unite in total honesty, not only could certain difficulties be faced and resolved, but they could not occur at all, as there would be no prerequisite compensate for a lack of love. Bye and see you next.